Okay, so here is the part that we've had in there. We got some extra plastic and squeezed out, and we're going to lower this. And this excess plastic is still very soft. We're going to pull this off here. We got a little bit there, and we're going to put it over here to cool down, and we'll put the match top on it and put it in the press. Okay, you can turn it off there now. It's in there, but we realized we've got some excess plastic that came off the back, so that doesn't stick there. We push that off there, and this is the match mold for the clipboard, and so it's been heated in the oven, and so we're going to so we can go to about 2,000 or 3,000, 5,000, but we'll let it sit there for 2 or 3 minutes, and then since it's already heated up, we're going to allow it to go up to the pressure, so you can stop. Okay, we've got another clipboard that we've. This was one with a bunch of the shopping bag plastic. And so we're just going to kind of open it up. Yeah, it's still pretty hot. So you can see with that stuff that just a little bit that I put on top did. Anyway, we're going to trim that, put it back in this mold, and put some more plastic on the back, and then we'll match it up with this and stick it in the press. Okay, so we got this piece we put some extra short stuff behind it to fill any low spots, and I'm going to do just some crisscross cuts in this. And they'll provide air paths for any voids, air pockets. So we don't have air pockets, so we won't have voids. So if you've got something fabric on here, or some, let's say if we were going to put this on here, then we wouldn't want to do that. But we're just going to leave this clipboard the way it is there. Okay. That's been in the press that we're going to take out. And this is the one that we got some excess. So this one we're going to show you what happens if we don't clamp it. So this is a finished clipboard. We just need to clamp it and let it cool down. And we'll compare the surface finish of that cutting board. So the clipboard's cutting board's about the same size, behave the same way. Cutting board's a little bit easier to do, but we're not going to clamp this one. We're going to put it over here and let it cool. Okay. So we're going to get this. We're going to get the excess plastic off. And I'm not 100% sure that this plastic fill all the parts of the mold. So we have plenty of excess, but it doesn't always flow where you expect it to. So it looks like it's going to be fine. I don't know, I got some orange there. You put some green in it, green and purple, I don't know. We're going to put buckets on this anyway. we're going to compress it down a little bit more. We got that big orange streak in there. I thought that was the back side, but we're going to compress it down some more, and then we will trim it down the side. So we got to let this, we're going to add more force. We're trying to press it down to the right height so we can put a lot more force on it than we typically would. So we still have more squeezing out the edges. That's also melting that plastic, that shredded stuff that I put on there. So we'll let it sit here 2 or 3 minutes and flow and melt. And then we'll take it out, let it cool, trim off the edges, and put the top half of the mold on it. Okay, so this is, we got lots of plastic that squeezed out the edges here. We're going to pull this out, pull the extra off, and let it cool down enough so we can trim it, and then we will put it with the match top and put it back in here. This is the clipboard that we didn't clamp, and so we're going to show you what happened. So it's still lightly hot to the touch, but it's solidified. So we're going to show you what happens to the finish. And okay, so if we look at this, we have this is where we had a little bit of plastic that we didn't quite have enough in there. But if you look, if you can look at an angle there, or you might have to move the camera there, you can see it's not slick, and we get so-called sink marks where the plastic in these ridges underneath, you can see that come through. If we compare that to this cutting board, now this cutting board is thicker, but it's got a much smoother finish. And this one, you can see even taking it out, it's cooling down more. It's starting to warp and dish a little bit. So we will adjust this a little bit, heat it up. That's the nice thing about thermoplastic parts, is as we can fix them many times. At least big stuff like this, small things you wouldn't. You just grind up and do that. But anyway, we've got some pieces that we put there. So we will adjust this and heat it up, and next time we'll clamp it. Even if we got some small voids, the rest of it will look much better. Okay. So we're going to take our second clipboard out of the press, and we're going to kind of turn it upside down right here. We'll pull off the taffy, the molten plastic. I'm going to turn it over here, and we're going to put the 3 clamps on it. So maybe a 4 would be better, but 3 seems to be able to do the job pretty well. Okay, and we're going to set up here in front of the fan and tip it at an angle so the air flows past it. Switch isn't working on the fan now. Okay, we got our third clipboard slash cutting board. So you notice we spent a lot of time on the shredding and other things. And this one is still a little bit hot, but it's cool enough that we can separate the halves. and this one was clamped. That's the flashing. Okay. So if you look at it, it looks much smoother than the other one that wasn't clamped. So if we don't let these cool down, then they warp a little bit. This one's cooled down enough we can take it out. And it is HDPE is flexible enough that if we have some kind of mackerel warping, we can kind of deform it into the shape we wanted. Okay. So if you look at it, a little bit twisted to there. So we're going to turn it over and trim this one. And this clipboard is ready after we get it trimmed. We'll take it over to the machine shop, just lightly sand around the edges, buff the edges, and it'll be ready to have the clip put on it for a working clipboard. One thing I should point out here, so this one is pretty much all shopping bags. You can see a little bit of the HEB one there. These bags, the lettering is based on ink, and we can't take that off. Also, on some of the laundry soap containers, they had heavy ink lettering on that as well. So this one, it says raising the bar there, and Tamuk, MEIE. We have just some very small air voids there. For compression molding, it's hard to get something that in there. But other than that, looks pretty good. So we have two others ready to come out of the, another one cooling ready to get out. And then the first one, which we intentionally didn't put clamps on, it's in the oven with some extra stuff reheated, and it'll be out soon. Okay. Another cutting board. I got some other shredded plastic and some of the stuff from today. And this is going to be the back side of the cutting board, but we're going to stick it in there. And we should be able to just press this and press it into place. So I'm going to let the plastic flow a little bit, and then we'll close it off. Okay. Okay, we've got the next clipboard. This was one that was a bunch of shopping bags, and I believe, so just in case it's hot, we're going to do that. We're going to separate the mold halves. So these are mashed mold halves. But the pins, well, we'll get to it in a second here. Okay. So I wanted to point out something on these pins. So these pins can only be the same height as this mold here. And so if we need to press the plastic down a lot, that's why we have to use another aluminum plate. So this one, you can see here, it's got the Bucky's thing on it. It looks pretty good. Sorry about the fan in the background. Okay, again, if you can see here, there's the air holes, the plastic going out there and sticking up. We can, that'll come off very easily. we'll trim it. But if you look here, it's very smooth on the front. It looks like we got some voids, but not really. Anyway, so there's a working clipboard after we trim it up and put a clip on it. So just to show you real quick here. The HDPE does get harder to cut the cooler it gets. Right now it's fairly close to room temperature, but it's pretty easy to cut now. In about an hour from now it'll be a little harder to cut. But this is not an engineering thermoplastic. Okay, so we'll attach the clipboard there. And we've got all of these have these were machined, these molds were machined and from Student Designs, and so we got Tamuk and the clock tower on the back there. Bucky's clipboard. Second clipboard that we repaired after we didn't have it in the clamps, and it was missing a little plastic, so add a little bit more plastic and I let it reheat in the oven, and then repressed it and used clamps this time. Okay, so sometimes when you repair these, things don't always go perfectly. This one, it's a lot smoother, except we have some voids right here because we put some shredded plastic on top. So it's kind of useful in this form, but we're probably best if we heat it up again and just let it heat up and kind of curl up and almost start from the midpoint. Anyway, it's smoother, it's clamped that way. It's just when we put the shredded plastic on it, we needed to do a preliminary step to press that down flat so we wouldn't have voids here, because we had enough plastic. It's oozing around the edges here. It's just that we had some air bubbles where it's trapped. So before I forget, I'm gonna pop this out here. I'm gonna try not to scratch the mold. So we're going to just do some crisscrossing here. And we'll trim off the edges and kind of let it heat up. Maybe let it flow a little longer so we can get rid of those voids in the center. Okay, anyway, enough. So last one tonight. For videotaping anyway. This is a cutting board that I used a little bit of, I used two different types of shredded plastic, so we'll see how it comes out here. It looks like it's already popped off out of the mold. Ooh, look at that. Okay, so here's the back side. Kind of cool there, but I figured this, oh wow, I think the back side looks better than the front. I thought it would be there, so we got, it's kind of blurry a little bit there because we have more of the high density polyethylene here. Anyway, people can use either side. So I'm not gonna make everybody watch me while I trim this one. But you can see this one, we dumped the plastic in there, let it heat up in the oven for a while, put it in here, put it in the press, and then once it was heated up enough there, pressed it tight, and then clamped it, let it cool. So this one took the least time of any of the ones we've done today, and as far as I can tell, it's picture perfect. But that's because we let it heat in the oven for a while, and we clamped it while we were while it was cooling down, and we had plenty of plastic. Okay, so anyway, this is the leftover. It's the last what we shredded today, and this is some other. Here we have some white, and then we have some clear, which is the milk jug stuff.